Welcome to this meeting of the Washington County Public Schools Board of Education. This business meeting and public hearing will be broadcast on Channel 99, and the public may comment in writing at boe@wcps.k12.md.us, and those comments come to us so that we know that what you're thinking and what you need us to know. So I'd like to call this meeting to order right now. We have a quorum. All members are present. And we have a special guest to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Kenneth Cavender. Please stand. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the words of George Washington, direct our thoughts, words, and works. Daily frame us to be like you. Bless all in authority over us, and be merciful to those in need. Thank you, Lord. Please be seated. Kenneth, I understand that you're a third grader at M.K. Dow, which is one of my favorite elementary schools because I get all of my Christmas stocking stuffers from your great arts and festival that's coming up soon, I think, isn't it? Do you have anything that you're going to have in the arts festival? Oh, good. I'll be looking for your name. Do you have some guests you would like to introduce? Okay.
This is Grandma and Paige, my little sister, my big dad, and my Aunt Jody, Bo, and Miss Chambers and Miss Dr. Henson.
You're going to make everybody in the back happy when I ask you what your favorite subject is.
Science.
Okay, you're going to make me happy. And you have a dog. What's your dog's name?
Molly.
And what kind of dog is that?
A lab.
Not a small dog. And I see that your favorite thing to do at school is learn, not recess.
Nope.
That's fabulous. Good for you. Do you know what you want to be when you grow up?
No, not yet.
That's okay. You still have time. There's still a little time left. And you like to play with your stuffed animal, George. What's George?
He's a monkey.
A monkey.
And finally, what's your favorite video game?
Forza.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, not yet.
Colleagues, do you have any question for Kenneth? Thank you so very, very much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
And you can be seated. I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
A second?
Second.
Those in favor? Unanimous. And we have like a few 100,000 minutes.
Motions? Just 5 of them, just
Okay.
5.
Go ahead.
President Zentmeyer, I move to approve the work session minutes dated February 4th, 2025.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Unanimous. Is there any, if you have discussion, deletions, whatever, make sure you let me know, okay? Approval of closed session, open portion minutes. Go ahead with your
Dr. Zetmeyer, I move to approve closed session, open portion minutes dated February 4, 2025.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
President Zetmeyer, I move to approve closed session minutes dated February 4, 2025.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
President
Unanimous.
Zetmeyer, I move to
Yes.
approve, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I move to approve closed session minutes dated February 18, 2025.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Go ahead.
And finally, I move to approve business meeting minutes dated February 18, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you so much. Which brings us to old business, the second reading of policy ACF.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer, Dr. Sabine, members of the board. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed policy ACF at its public business meeting on February 18, 2025. Immediately following the approval, a notice was placed on board docs and the school system's website seeking comments from the public on the proposed policy. No comments have been received. The Policy Committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed policy ACF.
Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve the second reading of proposed policy ACF entitled Animals in Schools.
Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor? They're unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Evans. New business, approval of the first reading of proposed policy JHCG.
The Policy Committee reviewed proposed policy JHCG at its public work sessions on February 12th and March 18th of this year. Maryland law requires each Board of Education to adopt a student telehealth policy that may allow for students in middle and high school to participate in telehealth appointments during the school day and on school premises. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed policy JHCG, which conforms to state law.
I have a motion.
I move to approve second this is first reading, I believe, of proposed policy ACF. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm on the old one. I apologize. My computer's going slow. If someone else has it, that's fine.
I move to approve the first reading of proposed policy JHCG entitled Telehealth Policy for Students.
Do I have a second? Second. Discussion? Seeing none, move to the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Student concurs. Approval of the first reading of proposed changes to policy KD.
President Zetmeyer, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KD entitled Opportunity for Public Comment at Board Business Meetings, Town Meetings, and Public Hearings, and the procedures governing such proceedings.
Do I have a motion?
But then I think Alyssa needs to.
Oh, sorry. You get to talk.
Okay. The Policy Committee reviewed proposed changes to policy KD at its public work sessions on August 8th, September 20th, and October 31st of 2024, and then again on February 12th and March 18th of this year. The committee is recommending the policy be updated to include a new process for individuals to sign up to speak at public business meetings. The process being recommended by the committee includes individuals signing up to speak no later than 4 p.m. the Monday preceding a business meeting by either calling the Board of Education secretary or emailing public feedback at wcps.k12.md.us. Individuals will be requested to provide the topic on which they will be addressing the board. The committee is also recommending language be added to the policy to alert speakers that once their 5-minute time limit has concluded, the microphone will be turned off. Lastly, the committee is recommending the policy include language notifying the public of its expectations that speakers hold themselves to the same standards of speech and conduct expected in public schools and be limited to issues directly related to the education environment in order to maintain an environment that is conducive to the board's educational mission and responsibilities. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KD.
You didn't mean to step over you, Lizzie.
I'm happy to skip over it.
Do I have a motion?
Can you do it again?
Yeah, I move to approve first reading of proposed change of policy KD entitled Opportunity for Public Comment at Board Business Meetings, Town Meetings, and Public Hearings, and the procedures governing such proceedings.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mike, was that you? Oh,
Charlie.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I have a question. Does this prevent anybody from speaking if they do not notify us by 4 PM the day prior to the meeting?
Essentially, yes. Nothing would prevent an individual from submitting comments in writing. It would just prevent them from speaking publicly at the meeting. But nothing in here would say that they can't submit any questions, comments, or concerns to the board. It's just to speak at the meeting.
Any other comments?
I just have a question. So we leave that piece of paper in the back of the room for people to sign if that will not be there any longer.
Correct.
So they would have to call in before 4 PM the night before the meeting. Is that correct?
It would be email or call, and then before PM, before any business meeting. So if the meeting you're usually on Tuesdays, but if we had another business meeting, it would just be that Monday proceeding, but correct.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? So it's 6-1, student concurs. So we're seeking approval for the first reading of the proposed changes to policy DGA, DGB.
The Policy Committee reviewed proposed changes to Policy DGA/DGB and Policy DGF at its public work session on March 18, 2025. The committee is recommending the two policies be combined because they both address signing authority. The committee is recommending that Policy DGA/DGB be updated to address the authority of the superintendent to sign contracts, the authority to request Board of Education payments, and the authority to issue checks. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy DGA/DGB and the proposed rescission of Policy DGF.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve first reading of proposed changes to policy DGA/DGB entitled Authorized Signature/Check Writing Services and the proposed rescission of policy DGF entitled Approval Signing Authority.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Move to the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, student concurs. You're up here for a while today. Go ahead with the approval for the first reading of Administrative Regulation DFAA-R.
The Policy Committee reviewed proposed changes to Administrative Regulation DFAA-R at its public work session on March 18, 2025. The Board of Education recently updated Policy DFAA, General and Self-Insurance Fund Balances, and vested the Board of Education, rather than the superintendent, with the authority to update Administrative Regulation DFAA. The board took this action because fund balances are under the authority of the board and not the superintendent. The committee is recommending the administrative regulation be placed in the correct format and that language be added to clarify that funds from the unassigned fund balance can only be expended with the formal Board of Education vote. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Administrative Regulation DFAA-R.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve first reading of proposed changes to Administrative Regulation DFAA/R entitled Guidelines for the Classification and Use of Fund Balance Reserves.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ashley. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, student concurs.
Nope.
Thank you. I was against. Oh, sorry.
She was against it. Linda was
Okay.
against it. So 6-1.
So 6-1.
So one opposed. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
It's okay.
Dr. Willow?
Good evening, President Zentmeyer, members of the board. I'm here tonight to seek approval of a gift of a 2016 Peterbilt 579 sleeper tractor from the Peterbilt store in Hagerstown to benefit students in the diesel program at Boyd J. Michael Technical School.
Do I have a motion?
Madam President, move to approve a gift of a 2016 Peterbilt 579 sleeper tractor from the Peterbilt store, Hagerstown, to benefit students in the diesel program at the Boyd J. Michael Technical School.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Do I have any discussion or questions?
I have a question. This is a great gift, obviously, for our program. What kind of expenses will we incur outside as like insurance? Do we need to cover insurance for this, or is this going to be just something that's going to be worked on in-house, or?
It's just something that we're going to work on in-house. As you know, there is an extended cost to diesel equipment, such as just teaching students how to be able to change brakes. Brake pads are very expensive. So what we're looking for, while we have trainers, we're looking for a vehicle that allows our students to get hands-on opportunities in the shop, just from replacing brakes, taking them off and putting them back on. That type of work, that's really hard to replicate on a trainer, which I mean is a great first step, but this is something that we see using in-house just for students to get the experience of hands-on learning.
That's great. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Built store.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam.
Very appreciative.
Yeah, they've been an awesome partner.
All right. Do I have a motion
We had a motion.
and second?
Vote.
Vote.
Vote in favor of? So it passes unanimously, student concurs.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilcox?
Good afternoon, President Zentmeyer, Dr. Sovine, and board members. I am requesting approval of a gift of $25,000 from the Nora Roberts Foundation to Boonesboro High School's We the People program. The donation will be used toward the cost of attending the national finals in April. Boonesboro High School recently competed in the Maryland State competition in Annapolis and won the school's 10th consecutive state championship title.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
President Zentmeyer, I move to approve a gift of $25,000 from the Nora Roberts Foundation to Boonesboro High School.
Do I have a second? Second. I'm sorry, was that you? Do we have any discussion, questions?
Just a comment. You know, the Nora Robert Foundation has been wonderful to our community, and especially the Boonesboro. So, you know, I'm sure all the board members would appreciate just everything that foundation has done for our schools and our community. So just another wonderful gift to our school system. So thanks.
Could you maybe mention what We the People program is? Do you know, or?
That's our government constitution program where the students go through their simulations.
Thank you.
On the other hand, does somebody else have a question? All right, let's move to the vote. All in favor? Unanimous, student concurs, which brings us to, thank you very much, procurement items.
And President Zentmeyer, before we get to that, I'm going to move to table the discussion for item number 5 entitled Visitor Management System.
Do I have to do, Elisa, do you have to vote or just go ahead and remove that from the procurement? Okay.
No motion, we just remove it.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Charlie?
To table.
Okay.
Sorry.
Unanimous to remove item number 5. Thank you.
All right, so now I have 14 items to review tonight. These items have been reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
I need a motion.
President Zentmeyer, move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements as presented in the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ashley. Discussion?
On the first one, unit price contract for device repairs. Can you explain to me this rating process of technical score and price score?
So, sure, so I'm trying to get down to it. So we ask vendors to submit a technical proposal, which includes a questionnaire and things like, are you ACER certified? How many technicians do you have? Where are you located? And things like that. And the committee, the evaluation committee then reviews those, scores those. We then move, kind of shortlist the vendors who we feel would be the best vendors to work with based on that evaluation. We then open the pricing for those vendors, and we took basically because there's so many different, there's different devices, there's so many different repairs, we took like a sampling of repairs, and we put those prices that they had given us for both OEM and non-OEM parts, and came up with like a cost score for those. K-12 Tech had the lowest overall score for that, so they got the full 30 points, and the other two vendors then were proportionally away from what K-12's low score or low cost was.
So, but it doesn't show any pricing here.
No, if you go down to the next page.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing with those three vendors, if you're, for example, if you wanted to get a battery repaired, the very first item for the first one, K-12 would be your low cost for that. So it just depends on, each of them have low cost. It just depends on, how they priced that particular
So then
fix.
that makes sense with the best effort will be made to send devices to the overall low-cost vendor.
Correct,
So you could be using all three of those vendors.
correct.
All right.
So I have a couple of questions. I'll start with a comment. I know we received an email regarding the public budget hearing today, and this kind of ties into it. I see we have a couple of reading software procurements that we're looking to approve here, and we've had many speakers come up and talk to us about students with dyslexia that may have struggles. If I remember correctly, we have approved more services that would go and expand upon what we're currently doing, and we're in the process of expanding that. Is that accurate, Dr. Savine? I think we've had those discussions in the past publicly, right?
I'm not sure specifically what you're asking.
Doctor, I see, yeah, that's fine. I forget what the software is that they were.
Like Dibbles, when we
Yeah.
identify, yes, and I'll invite Dr. Willer forward, who can speak more specifically. We do have assessments that teachers and staff can use real-time to assess students' reading and math levels so that we can provide, if necessary, Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction to provide real-time support. Dr. Willer?
And I think you're referring to maybe some of the interventions and some of the training, like Wilson that we've talked, and OG Plus. They're not necessarily a part of this consent agenda tonight. The items on here, at least for ELA, are what we use as diagnostic assessments. Dibbles in the primary grade, CAPTI in the intermediate grades in middle school. But you are correct, we are expanding training for both of the Wilson and OG Plus programs.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other thing I have here, are these actual contracts where we have to use these services, or these are contracts where we're locking in not necessarily for you, Dr. Will, but for all of these? We're just locking in the prices for these
Are you talking about like 12, 13, and 14? The unit price?
Yeah.
Yeah, the unit price contracts are just as needed work. So for, bleacher inspections, if we needed a bleacher to be inspected at Smithsburg High, we could get pricing from both of those vendors, compete, tell them, we'd like to have that done, give us your quote. We would then go with whoever gives us the low quote on those, for that bleacher inspection.
Okay, and so we don't necessarily have to use that specific company either. If we found, we were in partnership with another entity that could also provide services or whatever, that would be fine too, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we thought that there was, if we were, let's say we were going to have all of our bleachers inspected, and we knew we were going to do that, we could go out to bid ourselves. We wouldn't have to utilize this bid. We could go out to bid, that could be a big, it'd be a bigger project. We could,
Naturally,
yeah, say we want everybody to quote us on the entire scope of our bleacher and seating in gyms, and do that ourselves. This just allows us to, if we have a repair or something, where, today we find out that the bleachers don't work, we can call one of these companies or both of them, get them out there to try and fix whatever it is before, the weekend basketball game or whatever.
Perfect.
Mr. Bagdo, I want to go over a few of these just for transparency for our stakeholders. The vulnerability management software renewal, that is $93,380, correct?
Correct.
And then security information and event management, $242,425.70 for a 2-year cost.
Correct.
Okay, masonry repairs at Northern Middle School, $56,600.
Correct.
High school math supplement instruction resource renewal, a 2-year cost of $80,379.
Correct.
High school math, intro to algebra 1, intro geometry, intro algebra 2, renewal, a 2-year cost of $264,781.80. I'm not
Correct.
going to go on with the rest of these. I just think it's important for the public to hear what our costs are, that how much it costs to run this school system. There are several more on here, but I'm not going to go on. But it's important to know that the money that we get, we spend wisely. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor? Unanimous, student concurs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Prue.
Good afternoon, Dr. Zentmeyer, members of the board, Dr. Savine. First item I have for you this evening is a memorandum of understanding for advertising rights with the Williamsport Wildcat Athletic Booster Club. This agreement would allow the Booster Club to advertise advertising rights and sponsorships to support their program, which of course returns funds and resources back to our student athletes.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve MOU for advertising rights for the Williamsport Wildcat Athletic Booster Club.
Thank you. Second? Second. Thank you, Linda. Any discussion? Do you have a question?
I'm ready to raise, I cannot get this raising my hand down.
Seeing that, we'll move to the vote. All in favor? Unanimous, student concurs. Thank you, Mr. Prue. Obviously, you're up for the next one,
I'm up
too.
again.
Okay.
Dr. Zentmeyer, the next item is continuing with the movement towards the new Downsville Pike Elementary School. This is the charge to the Facility Enrollment Advisory Committee to establish the attendance zone for that elementary school, and also to look at places where certain developments may be applying pressure to enrollment trends at other elementary schools within the county.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, the motion is to approve the charge to the Facilities and Enrollment Advisory Committee, also known as FIAC.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions?
So this I assume this is going to be a very long process since we're starting it now, and it's got to be done no later than 2028, I think we said. Are there going to be updates, or I know there will be public hearings. Are there updates that will be made public as to what they've discussed and what they're looking at? How does that process look?
There are. So the initial work will begin this spring, where the committee will review the enrollment from this past September and also the current enrollment projections we have or are in the process of creating for the next school year. There'll also be, and there'll be interim reports provided publicly to the Board of Education from the committee. The committee then will also work during the next school year in the fall, after we see what the fall enrollment is, to get a sense of what the committee was thinking for redistricting, if it matches the enrollment trends that we were expecting. A report then should come during the winter months to the Board of Education in probably winter 25 or into early spring 26. Typically, that process then is that the board receives that report from your committee, the FIAC committee, and hands it off to the superintendent to also review and comment on. The superintendent then can provide a simple concurrence or can make other recommended changes based on the data he sees in that report. The goal is to have the board approve the new redistricting process in the spring of 2026, with the school opening in August of 2027. So that allows a year's time for families to recognize that their child's school of enrollment may change.
Did I miss something? Because I thought it said that they need to be done with it no later than 2028, but your time frame.
Fiscal year 20, well, August 27 is fiscal year 2028.
Oh, it said, okay.
I think it says fiscal 28.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, let's move to the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously, student concurs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Webster?
Good evening, Dr. Zentmeyer, members of the board, and Dr. Svine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of this evening's personnel actions.
Do I have a motion?
Dr. Zentmeyer, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, as presented in closed session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, move to the vote. All that in favor? Daphne? Oh, you weren't for that one. Okay, got it. Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
The first report to the board. Recommendation of the Budget Advocacy and Review Committee.
Once again, thank you and good afternoon, Dr. Zentmeyer, members of the board. As staff liaison to the Budget Advocacy and Review Committee, I'm providing you the report from the committee. Unfortunately, the committee's president, Mr. Britton, was traveling for business and only flying back into town this evening and is unable to be here, although there are a handful of committee members I know are in the gallery this evening. The committee met 2 times since you last adopted the superintendent's recommended budget as your draft budget. The staff shared with the committee the budget presentations that have been shared with the board and also with the community. We talked at length about what was in the budget, gave ample opportunity for the committee to ask questions. And their second meeting, the committee then began developing the report that you see in front of you and finalized that by email through further discussions. I'm happy to answer any questions you have with that report. You can see that in the second page of the report some conclusions on behalf of the committee and some recommendations. You know, as we've talked between staff and board, we know there's still some possibilities that there may be some additional revenue depending on what happens in Annapolis during the General Assembly session. And the committee wanted to make comment on uses of those funds should they become available, and you have that in your report.
Any questions? Mr. Peru? Thank you.
Thank you.
Legislative briefing, Mr. Edwards.
afternoon, Dr. Zentmeyer, members of the board. Happy to present you with a briefing on what's going on in Annapolis. As you likely know, yesterday was crossover day, so a milestone in the course of the session, and adjournment is scheduled for April 7th. So we're about 3 weeks away from adjournment. As I shared last month, the top issues continue to be obviously the state budget, as well as possible alterations to the blueprint for Maryland's future. Those, as you know, are intertwined because there's a lot of money represented in the blueprint, and certainly the state is facing a significant budget deficit. March 31st is the deadline for both the House and the Senate to take action on a budget bill. That is possibly going to be delayed. There's already talk about a special session being called to address the budget, and then on top of that, perhaps another special session in the fall because of everything that's going on at the federal level. And of course, the federal government's on a little different fiscal year and having a little bit better understanding of what the impacts of decisions that are made at the federal level may have on Maryland and the implications for the state budget. So not a lot to report on the budget other than they're working on it. There's a long way to go and more to come, certainly. If you recall, last month I shared with you the governor's proposal to make some adjustments to the blueprint, and that was known as the Excellence in Maryland Public Schools Act. That bill has been approved by the House, but with significant changes. So I just wanted to highlight for you some of those amendments. Basically, the bill as presented by the governor made some delays and changes in the blueprint in an effort to save the state money. The House, in approving that, reverted back to the blueprint essentially in its current form. So removed most of the governor's proposed changes, including restoring the per pupil foundation amount. That was in the bill that was approved by the House. If you recall, the governor had proposed a 4-year pause in the phase-in of the collaborative time for teachers. That's been reduced in the current version of the bill now to a 1-year pause as opposed to a 4-year pause. And then the prescribed increases in funding for concentration of poverty or COP schools, those have been restored in the bill that was approved by the House. So that's now over on the Senate side. Remains to be seen what the viewpoint of the Senate is, but there does appear to be a little difference of opinion in the Senate, and that they see this some changes being necessary in order to save the state money. So again, another wait and see at this point with regard to that. Did want to update you on the bill that also would have provided some alterations to the blueprint. This bill was included recommendations from the superintendents across the state. It did not move forward. However, I know that PZAM is working behind the scenes to try to get some consideration on the Senate side for some of the things that the superintendents wanted. Most notably, the career counseling program. They were looking to end the mandated pilot with regard to workforce investment boards and community colleges and the career counseling program. There's been a little bit of clarification. They don't want to end it, but they want to provide some additional flexibility because there are some districts across the state who have successfully started to do that, and so they don't want to stop them in their tracks. So again, that bill did not move forward prior to crossover day. But perhaps some of the elements of that will be worked into whatever is finalized with regard to blueprint operations moving forward. One new bill that I wanted to make mention of, and it did not come out of committee, but I think it's worth noting because it would reflect some changes to the blueprint, has to do with the career ladder compensation. I know this is an issue you all are aware of because it impacts us. Currently, when a teacher attains national board certification, they're eligible for a $10,000 a year salary increase, and that stays with them. This bill, which Delegates Wyville and Valentine were co-sponsors of, would have altered that, and instead of having a salary increase associated with gaining that certification, it would be a stipend, and it would be a stipend with a limited time frame. So, and also save money to the localities and the state. So currently, you get the $10,000 and it's moving forward. Under this bill, had it advanced, and it did not, I want to be clear with that, teacher who earned that certification would get a $5,000 a year stipend for 4 years. So $20,000 total versus over that same 4 years, $40,000, but the $40,000 would continue as they went on. Again, that went. The other thing that was included in this bill was it also required the State Department of Education to do a study to try to determine the impacts national board certified teachers have versus their peers who are not national board certified. You may recall when Dr. Savine presented the board's budget to the Board of County Commissioners, there were a number of questions from one of the commissioners relative to that. Is there anything that shows that there is value in having that certification? So this bill, again, that was sponsored by a couple of members of the Washington County delegation, would have sought to find that out. Didn't move forward, but perhaps in the future that bill will get reintroduced and considered again. Since the last presentation I gave to you in February, there was one additional bill that we have submitted testimony on, and it was actually in opposition of House Bill 161. This bill would require the State Department of Education to work with the Department of Health to develop a comprehensive health education framework. Then it would require local boards to develop curriculum based upon that. And it also had some provisions enabling parents to opt their students out of certain aspects of that health education curriculum. Our testimony was presented in opposition at the direction of the legislative response team based upon the board's position of local control, feeling that curriculum matters and so forth are best handled at the local level. The bill did advance. It got through the House. It's going before a Senate committee later this week. Today, we submitted testimony again in opposition. We'll see what happens with it. I will share with you that similar bill last year got through the House, but did not get beyond the Senate Committee, Education, Energy, and Environment Committee, which has it again this year. So if things haven't changed, it may likely meet the similar fate, but that remains to be seen. We'll stay on top of it. Quick update on the other bills that I shared with you that we provided testimony on. House Bill 157, Senate Bill 136, the Safe Schools Fund. That was the bill that would allow unspent Safe Schools Fund monies to be reallocated to districts that could use them. And that bill has advanced and remains alive. There were a number of bills with regard to the Juvenile Sex Offender Registry and essentially the communication to school districts when juveniles are added to that and are prohibited from attending school in person. All of those bills were not reported out with the exception of House Bill 1265. That bill has moved forward, and essentially it requires states' attorneys to notify local superintendents, the school principal, and the school security officer, if a school has one, of the disposition of a reportable offense by a student. So it helps to enhance that or improve that communication link between the judicial system and schools so we can do what we're supposed to do. It also requires the local superintendent to share information with their colleague in the event that a student who's prohibited from attending school transfers from one district to another. There are gaps there now. This would help to close that. And then perhaps most importantly, it also prescribes that the State Department of Education assemble a work group essentially to look at the issue and to develop guidelines and protocols to make sure that those students who are prohibited from being in school aren't there and those that are allowed to are there. The Right to Teach Act of 2025, that was the bill that established guidelines allowing middle and high school teachers to remove chronically disruptive students from class and a lot of protocols and prescriptive things with regard to discipline. That bill did not get reported out. Senator Quarterman was one of the co-sponsors of that. And then finally on this slide, if you recall, there was a wide variety of bills addressing the student cell phone issue. And one of those has moved forward. That was House Bill 147. And that bill requires boards of education to adopt a policy limiting the use of personal electronic devices during instructional time. Again, it still needs to get through the second house. and then ultimately signed by the governor. But it, as written right now, would have no impact on Washington County because you all already have a policy in effect with regard to that. You do not allow student cell phone use during instructional time. They must be turned off and put away. So again, we're monitoring that as well, but no implication for you. And then finally, for this afternoon, wanted just to make you aware that Delegate Wyvil's office reached out to us for feedback with regard to a bill that he and Delegate Valentine, as well as Senator Quarterman, co-sponsored. It did not move forward, but to be transparent, let you know that they reached out. Basically, it would have allowed private and homeschooled students to have their tuition when they're taking dual enrolled classes at HCC, to have that paid for by the school district. Originally, it started off as a bill that would have impacted the whole state. They reached out to us to get our feedback on making it, the impact of it solely on Washington County, and it did not move forward. We checked with Delegate Wyvil's office. We were looking for the amendment that they had spoken of, and were unable to find that, and they shared with us today that it did not move forward. And that's the report to this point. We've got another 3 weeks to go, and we'll provide you with something additional in April on tax day.
Hold on, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
I had a question about House Bill 504/Senate Bill 429. So with the amendments restoring the per pupil foundation amount as well as various things that were originally in the blueprint, what would be the fiscal impact of passing this? Would it just further dig us into a hole, and what would that impact be on our school district?
Don't know that I'm the person to answer that fully.
But the
We would.
person is coming.
The person is coming. I was going to say, Mr. Prue, come help me. But we would see additional funding, the timeline and so forth, and the amounts. My counterpart here on the left can probably share that.
So looking back to presentations, information we've shared with the board. So what we've shared with the foundation amount at $163 per student, that also trickles down into the allocation per student for ML and also compensatory education, because they are predicated on the foundation rate, would be approximately $3.64 million in additional state revenue and $2.13 million in local revenue.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports to the board. CNI met March 8th at Lincolnshire. Big thanks to their principal, Jamie Hay, for sharing such passionate positivity from the school. Dr. Willow led our discussion regarding MSD's math policy with math and science supervisor Amy Saylor and Carly Pumphrey adding in on English and social studies. I can't thank these staff members enough for their support of our students. The next meeting is scheduled for April 9th at Paramount at 11:30. The next report is facilities.
Facilities will be meeting, our next meeting will be April 29th at 1 o'clock.
Okay. Finance?
We have a finance committee meeting scheduled for next week, March 25th, immediately following our meeting with the county commissioners.
Okay. Human resources?
Human Resources won't meet again until June. And I'll get that date.
See and review.
Policy, we met, was it last week or the week before, and discussed all the policies that you just saw there today, and we will meet next on April 9th at 8:31 a.m. And inside joke, but it's actually on there for 8:31, and among other things, we will be discussing our reimbursement, our vehicle purchasing, and hopefully we'll have enough information to have a discussion about that for that meeting on April 9th.
Thank you very much.
Can I share from the student council.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank
All
you,
good.
Daphne, for
You're
reminding
all
me.
good. So back in January, I had the opportunity to attend the Winter Leadership Conference for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, where we voted on the two candidates for the state SWAB position, and that has actually been confirmed as Omari Barnes, a junior from PG County, so congrats to him. I also, last week, was able to attend the 3-day conference down in Ocean City for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, where we voted on this year's or the next year's officer positions, and we actually were able to take delegation of 22 Washington County students down to Ocean City to represent WCAC, which was really great. And finally, SMOB elections for this next year is coming up. I have loved my time as SMOB, but it is unfortunately coming to an end. Our April 2nd GA is when we are holding elections, so I invite all of you board members to please come. It'll be quite the time. We have 2 candidates this year, one of which is actually out in the crowd, Nora Murthy. She's a junior from Tech High, so we would love to have all of you there. And that's it for me.
When is that? What's the date?
April 2nd, here at CES.
I can't thank you enough for everything you've contributed to us. Big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
For future agenda items, please see me or Mike if you want something added. Of course, the budget remains on the future agenda items with the work session on April 1st. Are we going to have time to start public comment before?
We're ready to go into student recognition.
Okay, we're going to start with our student recognitions.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. We do have a number of recognitions this evening. I recommend that we just pause for a moment because we have a number of parents that are outside the auditorium, and I know they want to see their children recognized. So our team will allow our parents to come in, and then we'll begin the student recognition, followed by the rest of the agenda, the public comment segment.
Different ones, I don't know which one you're giving now.
And staff for their achievements. We have all-state musicians, artists who are being recognized at the state and national level, athletes who brought home state titles, and our outstanding educational support personnel staff. First, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Micah Sox, our supervisor of visual and performing arts. He will help us recognize our student performers who participated in state music ensembles. Then following Mr. Sox, Mr. Matt Wilson, visual art curriculum specialist, will introduce some student artists who earned awards in state and national art contests. At this time, I invite Mr. Micah Sox forward to recognize our
We have a
musicians.
slight pause for 3 minutes.
5-minute recess. They're getting everybody lined up out there, so just bear with us.
You guys are free to sit in the
Yeah, there's You can sit in the seats.
We wanted to make sure all of our students who are being recognized were here and now. It's my pleasure to turn it over to Mr. Mike Asak, Supervisor of Visual and Performing Arts, who will recognize some of our student performers.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Today, we would like to recognize March as National Music in Our Schools Month and Youth Art Month. Every day in rehearsal rooms and art studios across Washington County, educators dedicate themselves to reaching all students with life-changing artistic experiences. We often see the final product, but may miss the months of practice, refinement, and the learning experiences that make it all happen. Tonight, we celebrate arts education as an essential core part of the educational journey by honoring our students who have achieved at the state or higher level in their arts discipline. Maryland All-State concerts were held on March 9th as part of the Maryland Music Educators Association convention in Baltimore. These students auditioned in the fall against thousands of students from across the state. Earning the All-State designation is really quite an achievement. Last year, we honored a record 29 students. This year, we have 41 students to recognize. Students represent schools, are representing schools, Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, North Hagerstown High School, and South Hagerstown High School. We'll begin now by recognizing students in the junior and senior band, senior jazz band, senior orchestra, and commercial band. If you'll please hold your applause till we have the full group out to be recognized. Riley Alberding, Angela Aparicio, Matthew Ryan Barrett Jr. Ryan was also selected to the NAFME All-Eastern Ensemble. Liam Berger, Valerie Clark Miller, Wesley D'Souza, Damian Drill, Jaden Hess, Ian Morell, Camille Sandine. Camille is an All-State ×3. She was selected to not one, but 3 different ensembles, commercial band, orchestra, and jazz ensemble. Kayla Shim, Faye Ward. We have 2 students who were accepted to the NAFME All-Eastern Young Composers Showcase. That's Austin Suki and Vesson Williams. Next, we have our mixed and treble chorus students. Dahlia Borowski, Caleb Bowers, Jillian Burton, Aaron Downey, Lillian Doyle, Winston Estelle, Jocelyn Flores, Honora Glasgow, Reese Gibson, Layla Hersom, Zadira Johnson, Hannah Kamsu, J.J. Leedy, Umu Makalu, David Monroy Cruz, Ashlyn O'Connor, Winnie Okai, Sophia Pinson, Camila Portillo, Lyra Gray Quinnell, Alexa Russell, Amelia Schwarzenegger, Jocelyn Warrenfeltz, Maria Webb, Ava Wisner, and Nima Zimber. Congratulations to these students, and a big thank you to the amazing teachers who helped prepare them. Let's have a big round of applause for our all-state students. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Matt Wilson, Curriculum Specialist for Visual Art.
All right, now I have the privilege of announcing our visual art recognitions for the evening, and we're going to start with the 2025 Maryland State Superintendent Office Exhibit selections. We have 2 of those. The first one is Braden McCauley from Williamsport High School, and then we have Emily Shy from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. Now we have a first place winner for the 2025 National Star People Artwork Contest. And the winner of this recognition is Brittany Diaz Castro, also from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. And now we have some recognitions for the 2025 National Scholastic Art Awards, and these are at the gold level, the highest level of recognition. Isabel Cochran from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, Finn Jackson from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, Joyce Liu from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, Annie Mix from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, Kelly Nguyen from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, and Brielle Thames from Barbara Ingram School for the Arts.
And next, I'd like Eric Michael, Supervisor of Athletics and Health and Physical Education, to introduce our Winter State Championship athletes.
Good evening. My pleasure tonight to introduce our Winter State champions. We had a very good winter season this year in Washington County. Washington County had 3 Central Maryland Conference team championships and lots of individual winners with track and field. We had 4 region team championships, 23 individual region championships, 3 team championships, state championships, and 9 individual state champions. And it's my pleasure tonight to introduce those state champions to you for the winter season. We're going to start with the individuals tonight. First, we have from Boonesboro High School, the 1A boys state high jump champion, Derek Jones. And then from Smithsburg High School, we had a relay team, the 4x800 meter relay team. Members are Grace Ellis, Cora Gensel, Ella Fisher, Kayla Hallbecker. And these girls were 3-time champions, and Coach Stacy Crawford. And then for wrestling this year, we had wrestling. There's 2 divisions. There's a co-ed division where girls can wrestle in the co-ed and boys, and then there's a girls division. This year we had 3 state champions, and with us tonight we have 2 individuals with us. Tanner Holling from Boonesboro High School. Tanner was a 2A, 1A, 132-pound co-ed wrestling champion. 2-time champion, and he's back-to-back champion. And with him tonight is Coach Don Valentine. And then from Williamsport High School, we had Aiden Hastings, who was a 2A, 1A, 215-pound co-ed wrestling state champion, also a 2-time champion. And with him tonight is Coach Mike Rektorovic, our individual state champions for the winter season. And this next group had to wait a little while with all the weather changes, and just last week competed in their state championship. Our unified bocce teams, we were successful and had 3 different state champions in different divisions. Our first team up tonight is Clear Spring High School. Team members are Rocky Bishop, Hope Diller, Hazel Edwards, Khatib Macumba, Ty Shekels, Ethan Shippey, head coach Chris Malott, assistant coach Josh Edwards, and assistant coach Aaron Wadle. State champion, bocce, Clear Spring High School.
I'm doing good. How are you doing? Good. Better. Better. That's good. Hey, thanks.
our next team, again, a unified state bocce champion, is from Smithsburg High School. Team members here with us tonight are Sydney Caraway, Haley Doyle, Thomas Reynolds, Nora Willard, and coaches Larry Eichelberger and Deborah Ray. State Unified Bocce Champions, Smithsburg High School.
Yes, we need to go that way. Oh, she's gonna move.
Take one step back. All right.
And our last team tonight, again, a unified bocce champion at South Hagerstown High School. We have a number of their athletes that are actually practicing spring sports tonight, so going to introduce those that are here with us tonight. They're Go Together, John Smith, and Cameron White. And head coach Rebecca Wright.
And finally, this evening, I'll ask Terry Baker, our Executive Director of Human Resources, and Beth Moore, our past president of the Education Foundation of Washington County Public Schools, to help us celebrate our 2025 ESP of the Year and finalists.
Good evening. Tonight we recognize and accept our exceptional ESP employees by honoring our ESP of the Year finalists and our 2025 ESP of the Year that we celebrated on February 19th. Our schools couldn't operate without our support staff, their hard work and their dedication. It's just amazing. This year we had 148 nominations, 85 accepted, and 5 finalists advanced through a really vigorous selection process. Now, let's enjoy a video showcasing our finalists and our 2025 ESP of the Year.
working on graduation, times that she's working on enrollments and reaching out to families to make sure we have the proper paperwork. At any given moment, a student might be coming to her with any number of questions, ranging from I need a work permit to my life is falling apart and I need to talk to somebody right now. She handles all of it with grace and treats everybody as if they're her responsibility in that moment. It doesn't matter what's going on in her life, in her day, what happened 5 minutes ago. When you're one-on-one with her, she's going to be nothing but kind and patient and gracious.
Ashley's day-to-day role is she's the main cook. She plans, prepares, and cooks for 4 lines. She's in charge of training, overseeing the kitchen when I'm out. She helps with the ordering. Ashley and I started to work together during COVID, and I just saw the caring and the dedication. She never gives up. Even when we're shorthanded, she steps in and she does what needs to be done. She can get her point across without losing her composure, keeping a good attitude. She keeps it rolling. I have a very strong assistant manager in Ashley, and I tell you, I would not be able to handle this job without her.
So Miss Eddy starts out each day in transportation by doing a pre-trip on her bus and getting it ready to go in the morning to make sure it's safe for her students. After that, she begins her run around 6:30 every morning, starting out with elementary, and then goes into her middle and high school runs. And then Miss Eddy is also responsible for a midday that helps with special needs students as well, which is one of the things she's helped with throughout the past several years. They just love her in the community as their driver, and it is frequent that I do get emails from some parents or call-ins telling them how much they love Miss Eddy, her attitude on the bus, how she responds to their students, and just how nice she is overall as a driver. And even when they have multiple children, how the years have gone and they've grown up through multiple children with her. So they really do enjoy Miss Eddy on her route.
Ms. Walsh is our para-educator that works with our integrated pre-K program, and she is there to provide support to all the students in the classroom so they can access their learning. So she greets them in the morning, gets them through the routines. She's there working alongside the classroom teacher throughout the day with all of the instructional routines and supporting those students all the way through into the end of their day. Ms. Walsh has a great heart for students, and she believes in equity, and she enacts it. So there is no student inside that classroom that doesn't get the support they need to feel as if they're a part of the room and that they get equal access. Ms. Walsh is willing to do anything and everything, and anybody who knows her knows that, and she comes in with such a smile, and that makes all the difference in the world in the way that she approaches students.
I have nominated Charles every year that I've been here because he is one of the most caring, dedicated, hardworking staff members I've ever worked at on any level. He goes above and beyond. He creates a great working atmosphere with his peers. He has the respect of everybody underneath of him. He is very complimentary of them. He will come to me and will give them a shout out if they're doing well because he knows that their success is his success. He really does embrace the fact of, good leaders grow other leaders. And he is growing other custodians then to become other head custodians within the county. And I've never had a custodian who is ingrained in the culture of the school like Mr. Boaz at E. Russell Hicks. I mean, he is on lunch, he's talking to the kids, he's been to basketball games to support the kids, they cheer him when he comes in. Like, he is a critical aspect and a critical part of the success that we have here at E. Russell Hicks.
The Education Foundation of WCPS is grateful for this opportunity to partner with Washington County Public Schools. We are honored to recognize and celebrate all WCPS educational support personnel and appreciate the positive impact they have on the lives of students and in our community. As you can see from the video, these individuals go above and beyond every day. For the ESP event, the primary role of the Education Foundation is to solicit sponsorships and individual prizes for the finalists, including gifts from local businesses and a weekend getaway at Elmwood Farm B&B for the winner. Sponsorships from Nora Roberts, Cigna, Ellsworth Electric, Meritus Health, Mosley Architects, the Supply Room, and others help to fund the Education Foundation's literacy initiatives and the innovative grants for teachers. And now I have the honor of introducing the finalists. First, we have Lacey Grove. Ashley Harbaugh, who was unable to be with us this evening. Edwina Walker. Jessica Walsh. And your 2025 ESP of the Year, Charles Bell.
That concludes my report, but I do have a few updates to share with the board as well as the public. This National Social Work Month, we celebrate our school social workers for their critical role in supporting students' well-being and success. They connect families with resources, advocate for students facing hardships, and promote a supportive learning environment. Their collaboration with educators and the community strengthens our schools and helps students feel they belong. I thank them for their dedication to making a lasting impact. And just a quick reminder for this month, March the 21st is the end of the third marking period. That's right, we are 3/4 of the way through the school year, and all students will be dismissed 2.5 hours early on Friday, March the 21st. We also have a professional development day the following Monday. Our staff will come to work, but students will not be in school on Monday, March the 25th. Since we are heading into our final marking period, hopefully we've had the winter weather, or we put the winter weather behind us. We use 4 inclement weather days this school year. We build in 6 days into our calendar. The last day for students will be Friday, June the 6th. Students will be dismissed 2.5 hours early on this day. And the last day for our teachers will be Monday, June the 9th. During the summer months, I just want to remind the public that WCPS offers extended hours in our schools and facilities Monday through Thursday, and we are closed on Fridays. We'll begin our summer hour schedule the week of Monday, June the 9th. President Zentmeyer, members of the board, that concludes my update.
I'm at a quandary of which way to go. Shall we go with public comment? All right. As they're getting our tables back together again, let me read from KD. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Before I call individuals forward who would like to make comments this evening, I'd like to read from policy KD regarding procedures at business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Those wishing to address the board who do not sign up prior to the start of the meeting will be required to sign the log at the speaker's table for the purpose of the meeting's minutes. Each speaker may speak up to 5 minutes. A timer will be used for each speaker. Once the speaker begins, the timer will be started. A green light will be displayed. When the speaker has 30 seconds remaining in their allotted time, a yellow light will be displayed on the timer. When the speaker's 5 minutes have elapsed, a tone will sound and the red light will be displayed on the timer, indicating the speaker's allotted time has ended. At this time, I would like to call Aaron Myers. Aaron? All right. I would really like to call Ashley Carpenter. Wait. Okay. Elizabeth Moore.
Dr. Sovine, Dr. Zentmeyer, and members of the board. My name is Beth Moore, and I am here as an individual, a resident of Washington County. In light of the demands and conversations surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'd like to share a true story. Picture, if you will, a middle school girl. She's new in the school, new in the community. She talks with a different accent. Unlike the other students, she doesn't have cousins in the building. Her family doesn't attend any of the churches in the small town. She's tall for her age, taller than most of the 13-year-old boys. Awkward. She has dark brown eyes that twinkle when she smiles, and confidence that comes from responsibility. Responsibility for putting dinner on the table several nights a week. She loves to read and is curious. Can you picture her? In the first several weeks of school, she tries hard to be liked and to please everyone, but still finds herself sitting alone at lunch and left out of the games and giggles during recess. A few days after the first science test, as the teacher is passing out the graded exams, the teacher stops at her desk with a look of disappointment. "I was planning on curbing this test," he said, "but someone went and got 100. At lunch that day, as she's taking her brown bag to a quiet corner, one of the popular girls stands up and says, "Hey, come sit with us." The cafeteria goes silent as the new girl approaches the table with a tentative smile, only to watch as the others at the table spread out so there's no space for her to sit down. "Oh, never mind. We don't like you because it's your fault that we got bad grades." There is cheering and laughter. Can you imagine her feelings? The girl stopped trying. She was absent from school. I have a few questions. Are test scores and attendance important? Can children learn when they're afraid? What can the school system do? What should the school system do? That girl was me. I know what it feels like to be the outsider. I know what it feels like to be different. I know what it feels like to be excluded. And so I dedicated my career to seeing those students and benefited from working with professionals, accessing resources through policies, and yes, became a better educator through participation in trainings for teaching the diverse and underserved. So I ask you, as you look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, to support those struggling students and struggling staff. Be problem solvers. Keep the image of a child who is struggling at the forefront of your mind. Don't follow the leader who was inhumane to me. Don't be the teacher who fuels the fire. That's inhuman. Be creative in preserving the programs and services that keep kids in school. What can you do to keep the right people and train others so that the students in your care can be the best that they can be? How can you go beyond making space at the table? Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Madeo. Carol Mallon.
This is not the budget hearing, correct? This is not the public hearing.
No, this isn't budget.
Good afternoon, Dr. Zentmeyer, Dr. Sovine, and members of the board. I'm Carol Mowen, President of the Washington County Teachers Association. While I understand that individuals have the right to free speech, not all speech is free, and much of what we have heard over the last year or so has clearly violated Policy KD. I'm glad to see that you are working to revise the policy. While I'm not in agreement with all the changes, such as the 24-hour requirement to sign up to speak, I am in support of tightening the language and expectations around elements of decorum. I would, however, be in support of all speakers signing in prior to the start of the meeting. I hope that in the future you will enforce the policy and the language you have proposed on tonight's draft policy. Specifically, I want to focus on some of the proposed language. I quote, "Speakers may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools' educational environment, student well-being, and school operations. Comments that fall outside these parameters, except including personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals, may be deemed inappropriate and redirected to be addressed in a different forum, for example, by the Human Resources Department." While I appreciate what you're attempting to address in this language, I think that some of this additional language is not clear. I think the original language that states that individuals, quote, "may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals," provided enough clarity and expectation. Since last year, WCTA members have asked me many times why various provisions of Board Policy KD have not been enforced by the board. Members have been dismayed by the blatant disregard that some speakers have been allowed to display during public comments. Comments have included half-truths, misrepresentations of facts, and have implicitly or explicitly named staff in accusations and unsubstantiated claims. This negatively impacts all WCPS employees of all categories because they know that their names could be called out, causing apprehension and additional stress in each employee's daily work for WCPS. When individuals can come into a public meeting and speak without impunity, and in some cases wear clothing or use language that violates standards of decorum that are not allowed in our schools and classroom, it further exacerbates the situation and undermines student discipline. As you may remember from your government or civics classes, not all speech is protected under an individual's free speech right under the U.S. Constitution. A quick Google search provides a plethora of examples and resources. The Supreme Court has recognized limited categories of speech that the government may regulate because of their content, as long as it does so even-handedly. According to the Congressional Research Service, the court, quote, "generally identifies these categories as obscenity, defamation, fraud, incitement, fighting words, true threats, speech integral to criminal conduct, and child pornography." We unfortunately have been subject to such speech from certain individuals, and it is my sincere hope that this board will no longer allow such speech to continue during these meetings. And finally, please hear me clearly. The anti-trans rhetoric and wild accusations about teachers transitioning students or litter boxes in schools has absolutely no basis in fact. This hateful speech is hurtful and should not be allowed to be repeated without challenge. Free speech does not allow for others' rights to be violated. I hope that a revised Policy KD will result in future enforcement of the policy at the table.
Thank you. Dave Williams. Dave Williams.
Good evening. I also have concerns about proposed changes to policy KD, the public comment policy that you passed on first read today. Your proposed changes now require speakers to sign up in advance, no later than 4 p.m. on the Monday before the meeting. Currently, signing up in advance is encouraged but not required. With this change, if you don't sign up 24 hours before a Tuesday meeting, you're out of luck. No more comments from people who had not planned to speak or were too busy to sign up by your arbitrary deadline. The second change writes into policy the option to move public comment to the end of your agenda. Current policy, which you're not following, states that, quote, public comment will follow approval of minutes, end quote. In other words, public comment should be at the beginning of the meeting. You want to change the wording to public comment may follow approval of minutes. As a member of the commenting public, I oppose this change because it makes more sense to be able to speak about an agenda item at the beginning of a meeting before it's discussed by the board and acted upon through a vote. These changes almost seem designed to stifle public comment. Another change stifling public participation is the 4 o'clock start time for business meetings. Starting at 4 o'clock makes it nearly impossible for parents who work, parents still getting their kids home from school, and teachers involved in after-school activities to attend a meeting in person. I have a statement tonight from a county educator who's unable to attend due to activities at his school that illustrates this point. I have permission to share his remarks on his behalf, but since your proposed budget cuts call for the elimination of the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence position, and his remarks are about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'll share his remarks during the budget hearing. The public has been told that the early meeting time eliminates some staff overtime and meals for staff and board members and will save about $14,000 a year. For $14,000, you're willing to freeze citizens out of their right to come to a public meeting that has been available to them at 6 o'clock for years and years. Previous boards held 2 6 o'clock business meetings per month. This board is operating with 1 afternoon work session per month and 1 business meeting per month. You've already eliminated 1 6 o'clock meeting. Isn't that savings enough? What's more important, $14,000 or accommodating the most stakeholders possible? Please return the monthly business meeting to 6 o'clock so more students can attend in person. And in closing, I want to remind you of a suggestion I made at an earlier meeting, that the elected board and the public would benefit from a work session where the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion as it exists in Washington County Public Schools are explained. The statement I'll be sharing during the budget hearing that I referred to earlier also supports this suggestion. Here's some more supporting evidence illustrating the need for such a work session. Through a Public Information Act request, I found that on January 23, 2025, Vice President Gesford wrote in an email to Dr. Savine, quote, I'm encouraging you to drop any DEI programming started as of Monday morning, end quote. He then goes on to support eliminating the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence position, which he refers to as, quote, this DEI position, end quote. In response to Mr. Gesford's email, a new board member, Mrs. Beachley, wrote, quote, I am in support of removing DEI positions. I'm a firm believer in treating all students fairly and equally, and DEI specifically labels people and focuses on differences, end quote. What DEI programming is Mr. Gesford referring to? What DEI positions is the new board member referring to? The new board member calling for all students to be treated equally shows a lack of understanding of equity versus equality. The new member is concerned that DEI focuses on differences. Isn't the nature of good teaching giving kids the instruction and help they need based on their differences? Yes, the specific labels used in education do focus on differences. Multi-language learners, students with disabilities, free and reduced meal students, and so on. They're all indicators of need. Those needs can't be addressed when all students are treated equally and not equitably. Please, I think it's clear, we all can benefit from a diversity, equity, and inclusion work session.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to board member comments. Anybody have anything they want to say? At this time, we're going to recess from the business meeting to convene a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the Board of Education's FY26 draft general fund operating budget. I'd like to read from KD regarding this public hearing, Section 3, Letter C. Number 1 reads, persons desiring to speak at such public hearings are encouraged but not required to register through the superintendent's office prior to the date of the meeting or register at the location of the meeting up to 1/2 hour in advance of the commencement of the hearing. Individuals wishing to address the board who do not sign up prior to the start of the meeting will be required to sign the log located at the speaker's table for the purpose of meeting minutes. Persons speaking as individuals will be allotted 3 minutes. Those representing an organization will be allotted 5 minutes. No presenter may waive all or a portion of his or her allotted time to permit someone who is not properly registered to speak. I'd like to call forth the first person signed up to speak, Aileen Kerfman. Did I say that right, Aileen?
To the members of the Washington County Board of Education, my name is Eileen Kerfman. I'm a resident of Boonesboro. I want to thank you all for providing the opportunity to comment today. I'm here to urge you not to try to save a little money by eliminating the position of the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence. Here's why it's important to me. Someone very near and dear to me has a brilliant mind, but this person was born to a family from what they used to call the wrong side of the tracks. My loved one was promoted year after year in Washington County schools. Eventually, he received a diploma from a high school in Washington County. This was in 1974. He struggled for years. In his 30s, he requested tutoring from a literacy program, and he learned that with his diploma, he was reading at a 4th grade level. He took the literacy training. He now reads at the level of a college student. But meanwhile, his life had moved on. He was married. He had children. He is a hard worker, and he's always been a steady provider. But our community has missed the opportunity to have a brilliant mind that could have been used as an engineer, a biologist, any number of other fields. Washington County has missed out on that because nothing was available to help this person who was maybe treated equally with the other students, but his needs were not the same as some of the other students. This person's story brings home the importance of equity and excellence in education. Equity basically is fairness, making sure everyone gets what they need. I suspect my loved one's classroom, which was not in the best section of town, may not have been as well funded as some of the other classrooms in the county, and he may not have had some of the resources available that were available to some other students. Whether a student faces limitations because of the family's economic situation, or a disability, or membership in a demographic group that has historically been left behind, fairness, equity must be the bedrock of public school funding. Excellence is simply that, excellence, and a community gets what they deserve. If they don't pay for it and seek to have it, they're not going to get it. Experience teaches us that if we want to achieve anything, someone must be in charge of making it happen. Since 2019, Washington County has funded a position that supports the goals of equity, fairness, and excellence in our public schools. I urge the school board to continue to fund the position of Supervisor of Equity and Excellence. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Terrence Noah.
Good afternoon. Thank you for scheduling this hearing as you finalize the budget for FY26. My name is Dr. Terrence Ngwa.
I'm testifying in my personal capacity as a parent at Boonesboro Elementary and Middle School, and as chair of the Washington County Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I'm here to ask you to fund the Office of Equity and Excellence at a level that is commensurate with the needs of Washington County. Washington County and Washington County Public Schools continues to grow not only in its population, but in its diversity, making the need of this office thus focus on the diverse needs of students and guaranteeing accessibility to all learners and urgency. As a parent, I have witnessed firsthand how beneficial this office has been to faculty, staff, and students at my children's schools. From monthly mini lessons focused on the sense of belonging, inclusive bulletin boards, and displays to promote Hispanic Heritage Month, Indigenous Peoples Month, Black History Month, Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the teaching of diverse literature and arts, and most especially, the first ever international night that took place last November. The wide range of trainings that this office has provided to the school leadership and students is unmatched. And rather than gutting this office, more funding should be provided to increase staffing. In response to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee's letter on this subject dated February 6, 2025, the superintendent cited WCPS and the Board of Education Policy GBA-Diversity and Policy ACA-Educational Equity and WCPS's commitment to removing any barriers to educational opportunities for each student, providing essential support for student access, and maintaining a safe and healthy learning environment for all. I ask you all as board members and the superintendent, how can this be possible without the nursery specialized office and staff to provide training and ensure that this commitment is met? Blanket policies without an enforcement mechanism fails to serve the needs of our students and the community at large. Promoting equity initiatives in our schools has not harmed any member of the WCPS school community. Rather, the promotion of these initiatives has equipped our students and educators with diverse viewpoints and empowered stakeholders to be sensitive to the needs of all learners. School leaders and volunteer equity coaches at various schools are more than ever better equipped to be more inclusive to their approaches to the learning needs of our students. Without an Office of Equity and Excellence, this would never have been possible, and cutting funding would reverse any of the gains the school district has made in this area. Equity is intended to level the playing field for all members of the learning community, and we just cannot ignore that. The Office of Equity and Excellence supports schools by ensuring all students belong, grow, and thrive. I implore you not only to maintain the position of the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence or dismantling that office altogether, but also to increase the staffing levels so that the work that that person, that individual does, can provide support to parents, community members, and other stakeholders to ensure equitable access and opportunities for the students of this county. I want to thank you all for your consideration as you vote on the final budget for FY26. Thank you very much.
Thank you. LaVon Campbell. Did I say it wrong?
Yes,
Good evening. Let's get right to it. My name is LaVon Campbell. I am a Washington County resident and taxpayer. I'm a parent of a Williamsport High School graduate. I'm also the parent of a Barbara Ingram School of the Arts senior, a fourth grader at the STEM Magnet Academy at Williamsport Elementary. I hold a master's degree in elementary education and business management with a master's level certification in project management. I am a second grade teacher at the Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School, and I am therefore a Washington County employee. From my understanding, this budget includes a 2% increase for teachers in Washington County. I came here to urge you to reevaluate that number for the following reasons. The cost of living is rapidly increasing. Food prices have gone up by at least 2.5%, electricity over 4%, daycare over 3%. The consumer price index, which covers goods and services, over 3%. Rental rates have increased anywhere from $145 to over $300 a month. And the list continues on, but I only have a few minutes. But we're also experiencing cuts within our schools, which means the teachers have to cover more. We have to do more for our children who need it. So therefore, we're taking more time from our own personal lives and our own families to do so without compensation. With these new requirements, we have to spend more time planning and preparing, which again cuts into our personal lives and family time without compensation. The combined increases in daily living average out at about 3.75%, and a 2% increase leaves us in a deficit to provide for ourselves and our families. I'm asking you to give teachers an increase in pay, but also an increase in importance. We teach, motivate, encourage, support, cover, protect, instruct, and educate the future leaders, doctors, lawyers, firemen, nurses, lawmakers, and adults of this city and county. And we deserve more. Plus, we want to stay competitive. When I became a teacher in this county, one of the pulls for other people to come and work in this state from our surrounding states was the fact that Washington County did start off at a higher rate than most other states around us and counties around us. We want to maintain that competitiveness. I don't want to lose any of my good colleagues because we cannot remain competitive. I urge you to please look at it again. Find more for the people that are on the ground level doing the work. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Carol Mallon. Carol Mallon.
Carol?
Are you speaking again? It's your turn.
Before I begin, I do have a point of order for the chair. I believe when you were announcing the public hearing, you said that each speaker would be limited to 3 minutes, but I pulled up Erin Anderson's SMOR that went out to staff, and it clearly says 5 minutes in the
For
SMOR.
organizations, you have 5 minutes.
But individuals do not?
Has 3 for a town meeting.
You may want to pull up the SMOR and see if that has been miscommunicated.
Okay, thank you.
Yesterday, the county posted some of its proposed budget numbers for citizens to view online. The information notes that 41% of the Washington County budget's general fund provides money for education, and of that amount, WCPS represents 36%. The Post claims that the FY26 increase of $8.3 million is, quote, due to the state shifting costs onto local governments for the blueprint. Well, as the county has gotten wealthier, their share of the expected funding for local public schools increases. But that's not the whole story. The county has actually underfunded WCPS for decades, and for the last several years, the county has discovered surpluses of millions each fall. This found money has then been allocated outside the annual budget process. I reference these facts so that you will understand my position clearly. Your ask of the county commissioners is quite simply not enough. The proposed budget doesn't provide an adequate salary increase for staff. We need more than 2% to address inflation and the rising cost of health care for employees. This proposed budget doesn't address the daily maintenance needs of our schools. Since becoming president last year, I have answered members' calls about a snake falling from a drop ceiling in a middle school, mice running across elementary classrooms and sometimes perching on teachers' desks. I have met with teachers who vacuum their classrooms and disinfect surfaces to make sure their rooms are clean. We have buildings with areas that are regularly too hot or too cold because of aging HVAC systems, some that have parts that are so old they cannot easily be found. This proposed budget doesn't provide the staff needed in our schools to address all of our students' needs. Our elementary teachers currently don't have the planning time they need, and to provide it, do you know what is needed? More staff, more teachers, more paraprofessionals. We need a supervisor of equity and excellence. We need a second professional in our communications office. We need to add teachers back to secondary schools who were cut in recent years. We need county funds to provide supplemental teachers and behavioral support needed in the schools who aren't receiving additional state funding under the 75% rule. We need to reimburse mileage for staff who travel between multiple schools and staff whose job it is to visit and homes in the Birth to 5 program and the Dropout Prevention program and others. While mileage reimbursement appears to be a great deal of money, it would certainly cost a great deal more to buy all the fleet cars, keep them serviced, and buy gasoline needed to get these employees across the county for the services they are providing to students. And what percent of the overall budget is represented by mileage reimbursement or the proposed cuts to positions in this budget? The county cannot allocate money to the Board of Education that you haven't requested. Even if you do not believe the county will provide additional funding, I'm asking that you request what we actually need. Dr. Sovine has a list of unmet requests from schools and departments that I am sure he could provide. Please restore the proposed cuts and consider adding even more to the proposed budget before adopting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Williams.
I also have a statement that was prepared under the 5-minute assumption, so I'm going to try to fly through this as much as I can. Neil Becker, who I think you all know, an educator in the county, couldn't be here this evening. I'm reading his statement with his permission. I hope Mr. Becker's words will give you a better understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion that you'll find useful as you consider restoring the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence to the budget. This from Mr. Becker. The focus of my comments is the perceived threat of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is both a local and a national topic since the Department of Education launched a reporting portal. Many speakers discussed the topic at the last public meeting, and I must share my thoughts due to a citizen's request that the Board of County Commissioners cut off funding for WCPS, quote, unless and until all DEI staffing and programs are terminated, end quote. Normally, I wouldn't give credence to a member of the public's Facebook post or open letter, but this post was shared by current Board of Education Vice President Mike Gesford. Well, report me, terminate me, and suspend funding to WCPS because I am guilty of participating in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I have been for my entire career. To save you the time of looking into my work experience, I'll list some of the evidence for my termination below. And here he has a list of 10 items, so I'll get through as many as I can in the time left. Number one, throughout my career, I modified assignments to meet the academic needs of my students. I am guilty of providing equity. 2, I have been a state test proctor throughout my career, and that has included testing in small groups and/or providing extended time for students with individualized education programs. Guilty of both equity and inclusion. Students with IEPs and 504s have been included in my classes at all academic levels rather than being secluded. Yep, guilty of inclusion and equity. 4, I coached unified sports, which included athletes with special needs and partner students. Definitely guilty of inclusion. As the yearbook advisor, it was my duty to include every student, club, sport, and activity in each yearbook, which also makes me guilty of being inclusive and equitable in that role. Now I'm up to number 7. In my current position, last year and this year, I have partnered with a wide variety of organizations and agencies to support students and their families. That work provides equitable access to services and inclusive opportunities for students and their families. Those partnerships also make me guilty of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Daily, I support students in the cafeteria of a Title I school. All students enrolled at my school have access to free breakfast and lunch, and since I have cafeteria duty, I'm complicit in supporting equity. Report me. Jumping to the end. I am proud to diversify curriculum and opportunities for students and families. I'm proud to provide equitable access to education and opportunities. I'm proud to ensure that I am inclusive in all that I do in my job, and I hope my colleagues call me out if I ever overlook someone or something.
Thanks. Les McIntosh. I can do that.
Dr. Zentmeyer, Dr. Savine, and the rest of the board, thank you for this time. My name is Les McIntosh. I am a part of an organization. I'm Vice President of the NAACP, as well as the Vice President of HARC. I am a pastor in the area for African American Church and a Hispanic church, but most of all, I'm standing here not with those organizations, but as myself, as a citizen that is concerned about the elimination of the position of the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence. I'm here to stand against the budget decision and in support of the necessity of the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence positions that's trained versus the assimilation of duties being shared to those that are untrained, unqualified, and I request that you reconsider that decision. I'm not here to convince your course. That will take some time. But rather I'm here to compel your conscience to make a better choice. There's a saying that if ifs and ands was pots and pans, the whole world would be a kitchen. But for the sake of argument and notation, I have some ifs for you to ponder so I can notate. So with the budget cuts you have made eliminating the equity and excellence coordinating position, it was stated for the reason of funding. And I must quote for the sake of notation and accountability, what would you do if you had more money? Would this position be kept? Seeing that the data shows that Washington County, which is 56% white and 43% minority, is at its largest percentage of diversity as it relates to ethnicity, disability, and equality. No, ethnicity, disability, and the level of those in poverty with no representation that shows equity, equality. What would be your response if your offspring's education and representation looked like them and the culture was in jeopardy and the tables were turned? Would you have more sympathy, empathy? Would you be champion for someone to speak up for their identity? Would you not settle until you got excellence in diversity? What if? So with the budget cuts you made eliminating the equity and excellence coordination position, it's been stated for the sake of funding that I must quote for the sake of notation and accountability. What would you do if you had more money? Would this position then be kept? In your transparency, some of you have shared your due diligence in researching, investigating, mediating, and pondering within yourself the best course and decision of making the concerning this position that affects the full wealth of our children. But what if it took the same time and energy you had in conversation to get a job to hire, that you would do the same procedures and protocol to those you're fired because you did not talk to her at all? What if you talked or interviewed this person to see the depth of determination beyond the data? What if you took the time to see the interview, to hear the needs beyond the numbers? What if you took the time and courage to converse versus cowardly coming to conclusions with your own conscience without even a conversation beyond reading words and collecting data whom you seek to eliminate that will ultimately affect a whole generation?
Thank you so much.
And in my conclusion, if ifs and ands was pots
Patty
and pans
Felix.
and the whole world would be a kitchen, it would be a
Is
kitchen
Patty
of pots and pans full of a jambalaya called diversity. Thank you for your time.
Joseph Jefferson.
Good afternoon. Dr. Savine, Dr. Zentmeyer, and the Washington County Board of Education members. My name is Patty Felix, and I'm speaking to you today as the treasurer of the Washington County Educational Support personnel. The ESP compromise, excuse me. The Washington County Educational Support personnel represent the ESP workers of the board. The ESP comprise the hourly wage earners portion of the workforce. We are the bus drivers, the paraprofessionals, the food service workers, the maintenance and the custodians, the clerical and the technology workers. I would probably describe us as the backbone of the system, the gears that keep the chains moving. But those descriptions could be used by any group who comes before you looking for a fair share of the funds. In our case, however, students physically would not get to school. They would not be enrolled, they would not eat, they would not learn, and the buildings that they occupy would be in filth or despair. Over the past several years, we have been working with Dr. Savine to increase the wages of the ESP to become competitive within our county. As you look out over the landscape of our county, I'm expecting that you're familiar with the current labor market. Amazon, Sheetz, FedEx, and UPS, the multitude of warehouses up and down I-81, and the retail in our county and surrounding areas are providing wages and benefits and the likes of which workers have not seen in a generation or more. Pay is very high, starting wage, guaranteed annual or more increases and bonuses. Benefits are now included with medical, dental, and vision packages, vacation and sick leave. Our colleagues in other counties offer much higher starting wages, and we have lost many of experienced ESP to other school systems. While we have been working to raise ESP salaries, the work has only started. We are only beginning to close the wage gap in experienced ESP employees. In light of the very tight budget of our state and our county, it is imperative that every dollar spent is a wise investment. There is no greater return on our money than an investment in our students. That investment must include pairs in the classrooms, reliable transportation, safe and investing schools and employees who provide the necessary services to the students. The current shortage of ESP workers and the high turnover rate can be directly attributed to the lower wages. We recognize that there are a multitude of programs and services that are necessary for increased learning and opportunities for all WCSP employees. The critical element that all of those programs and services have in common are people, hardworking, dedicated people who make up the workforce of Washington County Public Schools. Please remember that without those workers, nothing happens for students. We need to recruit and retain the best for our students, and that begins with paying a living wage to all ESP. Thank you for listening, and I hope that we can count on your support. Thank you.
Joseph Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson, did you want to comment on the budget or on? Okay, we're going to reconvene, and then we'll put you in there, okay? It was on the other sheet, and I didn't know. Any other comments on the budget? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
All right. My name's Ethan Lowen. In February of 2023 at a blueprint presentation, because really the budget year by year is obviously very important, but the larger strategy that's being followed is what matters the most. And so going back to February of 2023 at a blueprint presentation, I stated that the blueprint wasn't just going to grow the education budget, it was going to dramatically increase the cost of all of government. I said that because Blueprint increases spending by $3.8 billion a year, and Maryland collects from us, the people, less than $30 billion in taxes and fees each year. That means the only way to pay for Blueprint every year is for us to increase our taxes and fees by more than 10% every single year, or borrow an unsustainable amount of money in order to keep adding $3.8 billion to the Blueprint. At the same time, for 3 years now, I've also pointed out that despite all the sales and marketing of Blueprint, All it really is taking the same policies that the teachers union promoted in cities such as Baltimore and DC and New York City for more than 30 years ago that have failed in all those places to improve anything, not just academic performance. I believe every metric that affects the welfare of children has declined in every community that has instituted these Blueprint policies for the last 30+ years. And all Blueprint is importing those same policies into the schools and lives of our children. Therefore, as children's outcomes decline to the same levels as those other places that have had it for longer, how can there be anyone who still denies that forcing Blueprint's policies into children's lives isn't an act of cruelty? Is that not a fair question to ask? But the teachers union and their board members points to the suffering and says this is proof we must continue with the Blueprint. Then 12 months ago, when Governor Moore announced that Maryland will now have perpetual deficits, meaning Maryland will be swiping the credit card every year without an end date, and the only bill that credit card will be used to pay for is the Blueprint, I then stated that Blueprint has now put our state on a path towards financial instability. That was last year, right here at this table. A couple of months later, Governor Moore announced 60+% increases to DMV fees in order to somewhat lower the use of the credit card. Then 4 months ago, Governor Moore declared that Maryland is now in a financial crisis, that in 5 years we will be running a 16% deficit caused by Blueprint's annual $3.8 billion spending increases. I stated last month that referring to what we are inflicting upon our state and children, and it is the children who are suffering the most from what they experience as a result of Blueprint's policies in the schools and classroom, and are then going to have to pay for it as adults, is actually worse than a crisis. I described it as societal instability. I further stated that Maryland's ability to pay pensions is now at risk. I said all of this on February 18th. The next day, February 19th, the governor called a joint session of House and Senate committees in the Capitol and proposed a temporary stop to just some of the $3.8 billion in increases for this year and next. The response to our governor was that the teachers union, their representatives in the State House and the Senate, and some superintendents who built their careers off of agreeing with the teachers union and promoting their policies as a way to move up the public school ladder, that group excoriated the governor's staff when they gave their presentation. 2 days later, on February 21st, just less than 4 weeks ago, the Department of Legislative Services, they are an office of our State House and Senate and responsible for publishing the effects of financial proposals and options to keep our state financially sound, recommended that public school pensions be moved from the state's responsibility to the county's responsibility. That places our public school pensions at far greater risk than I was referring to just 4 weeks ago. Either you have to believe there have been prophetic abilities over the last few years, or you have to realize that this situation has been clear and inevitable since Blueprint came into effect 3 years ago, and we, the people, have been lied to by people fully aware of the lies they've been telling us. So I think that the only solution, because we never had these problems, not just for decades, but generations, is to go back to the education system that is even being used right now. You can look at Carroll County. It's doing everything that parents come here and ask to be done. They're doing it. It's not like it's a mystery. We were doing it up until, 2012, and maybe things started to change at that point. We are not far away from what benefits children, and we need to return to it, because the alternative is to continue down this road of increased suffering and instability and the suffering of our children. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think I saw another hand.
Thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted earlier. I didn't realize there was going to be more time for public comment. I'm here as a citizen of Washington County, and as probably all of us are here, and especially you on the board, because the education of our children is of utmost importance to all of us, all of our children. Not a special few, as one of the utmost priorities of our society and one of the greatest successes of our society. However, I am deeply concerned about recent actions of this board, all of which seem to come under the category of limiting public response to school board actions and limiting accessibility to input from and advocacy of the students and staff. Namely, 1, timing of meetings, making attendance difficult for teachers, parents, lay leaders, and the working public. 2, policy of voting on issues first, then getting public response. I would ask you, what is the purpose of public response or comment after you have already voted? And finally, I messaged yesterday to speak at today's meeting. I got no feedback, so I called this afternoon. There is no number listed on the WCPS website for the board. So I called the general number, went through all the prompts, and finally pushed the prompt for receptionist. I was cut off. Finally, I went to the public service part and did get someone who assured me I would be listed on the public comment section. And finally, I want to speak to eliminating the DEI position. I do not expect and fervently hope that you do not rely for the most part on public opinion to guide all of your decisions, but rather use research, informed input by teachers on the ground, parents and students, and public perspectives, their experience. However, hopefully, we can each of us experience Washington County.
Thank you so
Done?
much. I appreciate your comments. We're going to reconvene in our meeting, our regular business meeting now, but thanks for your comment.
Okay, can I speak again later?
Can you what?
Can I speak again on the other issue later?
Which other?
DEI. Other people have spoken twice.
I understand that. Are you speaking on a budgetary matter?
The cut of the budget of the DEI
Okay, the
position.
budget meeting is over. We're reconvening in the business meeting.
Oh. So can I speak again?
Well, first we have Joe. We have Joe Johnson first, Joseph Johnson first.
Okay.
Thank you. Joseph Jefferson, I'm sorry. Is he? Okay. All right, we're back to regular session. Public comment.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Jefferson. I'm a Hagerstown native, graduated from North Hagerstown High School, Hagerstown Community College, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, where I got my master's degree in student affairs and higher education. This jar here is filled to represent our current student population, 22,549 students. But you can only see the optics of ethnic and racial diversity. What you cannot identify with your naked eye here is the following. You cannot identify the 61.3% of all students who receive free and reduced meals, the 52.2% of all students who come from economically disadvantaged homes, the 20.8% of all students who are identified as Title I students. You cannot see the 12% of all students who have a disability that requires accommodations via 504 or individual education plans, also referred to as IEPs. You cannot see what is less than, if not equal to 5% of all students who are multilingual, experiencing homelessness, in foster care, or who have IEPs or ADA 504 plans. This jar here represents the sole individual tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that all 22,549 students represented in this jar have equitable access to the educational resources necessary to provide them with a level playing field in the classroom while also helping prepare all students, all of our students, for the future of this constantly changing world. This individual is the position that also understands that marginalized students are disciplined more frequently and more severely than their peers. This person strives to create a learning environment where traditionally marginalized students can thrive, feel free from bias. By embracing inclusivity, this individual helps ensure that students from diverse backgrounds feel valued and supported. It is this sense of inclusion and value that enhances their overall learning experience. This person also makes sure that all 46 of our schools are compliant with state-mandated regulations, while at the same time also providing training and professional learning to all Washington County Public Schools staff and employees. This one person. This jar here represents the current demographics of our administrators, our supervisors, our support staff, and our teachers. These are the individuals tasked with educating our students and looking out for the well-being of them throughout the course of the day. And as you can clearly see, there is a drastic difference between the demographics of these teachers, administrators, supervisors, and support staff when compared to the students to whom they serve. Can you imagine being a student in need and trying to find an adult who you feel comfortable talking to, while having some diversity within this administration here? Many of our students are struggling to find people who look like them, and they are struggling to find role models that they can look up to. With that in mind, I strongly believe that it is imperative that we fund the equity and excellence position and take additional steps to ensure that this jar here and this demographic here starts to look more like this demographic here. Our students are our customers, they are our clients, they are products of the institutions to which they attend. We owe it to those students and their future to make sure that we, as administrators and adults, provide the best education possible for this ever-changing community as we put these students out in the real world to represent the schools to which they graduate from. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Your time doesn't start until I leave.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Becky Higgins Airy. I'm a teacher here in Washington County. I work at South Hagerstown High School. I've been here for 30 years. I'm a 20-year National Board certified teacher. And I just want to really talk about the work that has yet to be done. You know, when the equity and inclusion position, and excellence position was formulated, it was in recognition of work that has yet to be done. We study Brown versus Board of Education. We think that's a landmark, important experience in America where we can integrate. But one of the things we don't study in that is that when that occurred, there were a lot of black schools that lost their students, but those students, more importantly, lost their black educators. those faces and that camaraderie, that connection that they had when they could see themselves in that role. How many Black educators are in Washington County Public Schools? How many Black individuals or any individual of color are in leadership positions? This county doesn't just have a history of Civil War and what that meant, but we have a segregated history right downtown. And our students don't know that. And I talked to our Black students, our BSU at South Hagerstown High School. They are astonished when they find out about the curfewed areas in their town. Sidewalks that they walk today and don't know. They don't know that South Hagerstown High School has a segregation history. Every individual has a right to know who they are and who they can become. Our work is not finished. And as the gentleman just said, to eliminate even just the one person whose work is astronomical means that we are not doing our job as a public institution. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, by definition, is public education and democracy. Now, some folks in leadership roles, perhaps here, are taking cues from a national voice, a narrative that is being spun by a few that is going to exclude valuable young minds that will grow this county. I am saying we need to see, we have work that has yet to be done. You know, I was looking at the county survey, the engagement survey. We had 77% of our young people participate in that survey. And I imagine you've probably looked at data or you looked at parts of it or you will. You know, when we take these surveys, certainly we're looking at this data and we're asking of the people who've taken it, what is it that need? What do they want? What are our goals? I mean, certainly in our schools, you know, we look at our SIP goals and we know we have our safety goals, we have our well-being, our culture goals, school climate goals. So when I was looking at this, you know, 66% of the students who took the survey said that they felt that they enjoyed going to the school that they were in. Now, this was under the topic of acceptance and belonging. The ones that stood out aside from that one was students feeling they belong in their school. 67% of the students felt that they belong in their school. Another one at the end was the school values the cultural background of the students. That's 62%. That's not acceptable. That just, though, means we still have work to do to remove an individual who is trained, who is a valuable resource to my school, to our schools, means we are not taking care of the areas of needs that we have actually tried to get information on. I would be curious to see if we were to take a look at the Maryland school survey that all the school systems in the state take, and if we were to pare down those results by question, what would that tell us about that need?
Thank you,
Thank
Becky.
you for your time. We have work to do.
Anybody else in the regular? Donna, right?
Chris Matteo. I also want to speak in advocacy to reinstate the DEI position. As a retired child therapist, I know that, and I want to speak further on the issue of belonging. I know that studies on school violence show that not belonging is a major factor in causing young people to be influenced by fringe groups where they can belong. Therefore, having a voice is crucial in a community, and limiting violence benefits all of us by creating an atmosphere of inclusivity. With regard to the DEI position, as I sent to each of you, and I do appreciate that 2 of you out of 9 responded, Ms. Wang and Dr. Zetmeyer, I would like to know who specifically would be taking up the responsibilities that this DEI position had covered. And finally, I want to say that Axios today, it's a moderate news media, reported after describing the significant role Indigenous code breakers played in World War II, Major Howard Connor said, "We wouldn't have overtaken Iwo Jima if it hadn't been for those code breakers, those Indigenous code breakers." Today, Aaron Alberti of Axios reported that at least 10 articles about the code talkers have disappeared from U.S. military websites. Broken URLs are now labeled DEI, an abbreviation for diverse, equity, and inclusion. Axios found that web pages associated with the Department of Defense have also put DEI labels on now missing pages that honored prominent Black veterans. Similarly missing is information about women who served in the military, including the Women Air Force Service Pilots, WASPs, of World War II. A profile of Army Major General Charles Rogers, who received the Medal of Honor for his service in Vietnam, was similarly changed. But the Defense Department replaced the missing page and removed DEI from the URL after public outcry. 2 days ago, media outlets noticed that the Arlington National Cemetery website had deleted content about Black female and Hispanic veterans. The erasure of Indigenous, Black, Hispanic, and female veterans from our military history is an attempt to elevate only a portion of our population. It is also an attempt to erase a vision of a nation in which Americans of all backgrounds come together to work and be supported for the common good, not only one aspect of our community. Who is going to save the record of these brave citizens, these courageous people in the annals of our history? After World War II, Americans came together in a similar spirit to create a government that works for all of us and continually trying to help all of us belong. So we aren't vulnerable. Our students aren't vulnerable to these fringe violent groups. Who will stand against these policies of erasure of history in our institutions by minorities? I would ask that you consider changing your policies regarding timing of meetings so people can give comment on the budget. Allow public response, voting not after. Make easy access with working phone numbers, and reconsider eliminating the diversity position. Thank you.
Anybody else? Did you sign in the log?
No, I will vote.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Dr. Zetmeyer, for allowing the community to speak after the rules were very
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Oh, every time, every time. Well, you know, I don't like to publicly speak, which is funny, right? First of all,
Your name?
April Crowhair. Thank you. Mike. I'd like to say that we started our last board meeting with prayer, which I'm a big fan. I always wear my cross. It's funny, I almost never wear another necklace because this necklace has been on my neck since I've been about 13 years old. And I say that because since it's been brought to our board meeting, I feel it opens a door. Now, when we talk about God, whatever God that is we believe in, most of us believe our God to be a kind God. Most religions agree that God is kind. And God values kindness. The school system values kindness. These are very parallel, right? We value kindness, we show kindness. This should be the given. Now, without stating the obvious, I believe I sit in a fairly Caucasian board. Now, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago, my great-grandfather would have hated the fact that I married a Cuban man, right? I have mutts. One of my mutts that I love very much is also a quadriplegic who drools and can't wipe his butt. Very cute, adorable, has a great smile, one hell of a baseball player, believe it or not, plays for the Challenger League, does a great job. But in saying that, not really the life I dreamed. I remember being pregnant with my kid and my husband going, whatever you do. Now let me start by saying that even though my husband is Hispanic, he's not building buildings here, right? My husband comes from a diplomatic family, does very well, right? My father-in-law, he was an ambassador. I mean, again, didn't come here illegally. My father-in-law, when he did finally apply for American citizenship, it's because we begged him, because we wanted him to live here, because we all had children here. Point of my story is kindness. Kindness goes a long way. Now, I see that you're pregnant. I hope your baby's very healthy. But if they're not, I wish you nothing but kindness as well, and I don't wish that upon you. But I hope that everybody is kind to children, no matter what shade, no matter how they walk, no matter if they live, no matter if they die. Also been to 60 funerals for kids, many of them within Washington County. The people that fight for DEI are not people that look like you. In fact, they're not people that look like me. But the way that they've had to fight for their rights, the way that I have to fight for my son Charlie to even be respected, you wouldn't believe it if I told you what it looked like. So for a community like you to make those decisions, you don't have the background. You don't have the knowledge base. What do you know? What are you coming to the table with? Where has this been in your life? And I don't say that to shame you, because that's not who I am. Again, I believe in a God. I believe in a very, very kind God. But I believe that's who we are as people. And I believe that the mere cost of having one person who says, I'll be the person. I'll be the person who takes that role, takes it off the board, takes it off the Department of Special Education, takes it off everybody in the school system to be the middleman. And I come to you as a citizen to take that heart of yours, which must be in there because we started the meeting in prayer after all, right? In prayer. To ask yourself, would I be mean to this child on the street? And you have to remember, Dr. Zittmeyer, at one point you didn't know what neurodivergent meant. And I had to explain that to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there anyone else that is going to speak? That moves us. Didn't you already speak, Ethan?
Not on the budget. Well, this isn't on the budget.
You don't have to sign in.
All right.
I have it memorized.
All right. Yeah, my name's Ethan Lowen. You know, the way that this discussion about the DEI position is happening locally, it reminds me of exactly the discussion that the governor tried to have last month in the state capitol regarding the blueprint that I referenced earlier. Because what was interesting is that what the governor was pointing out was that there are issues with the blueprint, and he was trying to have a conversation about it. That's why he called the joint session. And there was no conversation, actually. What ended up happening is it was just person after person after person, state leaders, very high senior people, just saying the same things that are being said here, which is slogans. No one can point to how DEI is benefiting our children, how are children benefiting. Now, there's a million slogans about it. And if slogans ran the world, I would be the #1 supporter of DEI. But where is it benefiting children? And that's the same conversation with the blueprint, right? And the thing is I've never heard anyone give a metric of how DEI benefits children. And the issue here is that now that we know that the state budget crisis is actually that light at the end of the tunnel is a train, like 100% guaranteed. It's been defined. We know it. So what happens is that if DEI is not benefiting the lives of children, then what we're doing is we're just feeding the state financial crisis by continuing to fund an extra position. Now, why does DEI, why does it not show up, right? Like, we know why Blueprint doesn't, right? We have a 30-year history on why Blueprint's policies are hurting children, not benefiting them, hurting them. Why does DEI not? Well, there was a study that came out from Rutgers. It was a massive study this past November on DEI. Now, it's DEI in the workplace, and what it showed is that DEI in the workplace increases workplace hostility. That was the summary. The Rutgers study couldn't show a single positive effect of DEI. So if that's the effect that it has on adults, is it surprising that no one can point to positive effects that it has on children? You know, I actually, and I would challenge anyone wants to challenge me in this room, I'd be happy to have a discussion with them. I am the most diverse person in this room. The most diverse person in this room. And DEI has never benefited any part of my life, any one of the categories. And the reason that, this is what I'm going to put forward, as I compare how I lived, my family lived, my children, and what I have seen from DEI, is that DEI really is based upon a rumination. It is just a focus on negatives. And when you talk to psychologists will tell you that the #1 source of mental ill health is rumination. So because DEI at its core principles is a focus on negatives, it creates a cancer of victimhood. It creates a cancer of helplessness. And that's where the anger comes from that the Rutgers study noticed. Now, I would welcome anyone to come up and say otherwise, because if you can have a better philosophy on that would benefit my children and their minorities and everything else, then I'm all for it. But we got to go with what we have observed for years now. And we know, because there is no positives, we can't just continue to feed a budget crisis. We can't continue to cause that train to come at us even faster. That's what every ill-spent dollar does to our state and every one of us that are residents of Maryland now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I was not. Closer? It's on. Can you? Okay. Susan Day. Again, I was here last time. Concerned citizen of Washington County Public Schools. I was not planning on speaking, but I cannot sit there and listen to things that are being said. So, the last meeting, I spoke about DEI from my heart, and I told you I thought it was necessary. Since then, and several people here assured me that it was a budget decision, not a political one. I just fell off the turnip truck because I believed you. After things have come to light about emails and other things that were said, I'm speechless. Since the last meeting, I have taken it upon myself as a citizen to attend various committee meetings to understand how we come up with this budget. I've seen some of you there, some of you I haven't seen at these committee meetings. I've spoken to you. You assured me it was a budgetary decision. I attended these meetings to see that curriculum needs and how curriculum needs feed into the budget and how certain curriculum needs weren't working and they were taken out. And we're adding new programs because they're proven programs for the children who need them. I educated myself. I am disappointed in myself for believing all of you to be truthful and honest citizens of Washington County. You assured me your decisions were not political. And what has come to light this evening tells me perhaps they were. As far as the Rutgers study, I would beg to differ, because here's the deal. You ask grown adults about DEI. Guess what? They didn't go to school when DEI was there. So their prejudice is rooted in the fact that they did not have proper training as children and young adults. So as long as we continue to feed that, adults, go ahead, somebody do a study on children. They don't know. They don't know what DEI is. We are the adults. We know. Is it a measurable metric? No. At this point, no, because it hasn't been around long enough. To quote a study done at Rutgers on adult employees who never experienced anything like we're trying to do is irrelevant. I'm beyond this, not all of you, some of you were truthful, and I appreciate your honesty for why you did what you did. But some of you assured me it wasn't just a budget, it was just a budget thing, it wasn't political. I question how citizens can believe what is said here in the evenings when off to the side, that's not the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll sign, but there's no pen. Dr. Zentmeyer, Dr. Sovine, and board, you've heard me speak before. My name is Nancy Evans. I have a black granddaughter. She's 29 years old. When she was in high school, she participated in a program called AVID. Now, I don't know if any of you are familiar with that program. Some of you may be if you've been around long enough. That was before we ever used the words DEI or anything like that. But all I can say is it really helped a rather shy girl who didn't mix that well get confidence in herself, and her performance in school was okay, and she went to the top of her class. I mean, not the very top, but up there. Went on to college, went on to get her master's degree. And I think that AVID program really, really helped her find out that, she had the ability to do all of those things. So I just, and this was, I don't know, 15 years ago. We weren't using DEI words then, but it was that type of a program that really helped her. There are thousands of other kids that benefit. And I'm probably the minority, but I don't care if my taxes go up. I can afford it. Most of us can afford a little bit of that. So I don't care. We need those types of programs to help our kids. Thank you. Oh, here's the
Thank
pen.
you. Anybody else? All right, now we come to board comments. So Linda, let's start with you.
I'm going to read mine because I've been thinking about what I wanted to say. I'm disappointed that my colleagues feel that the position of Supervisor of Equity and Inclusion is not valuable. I think we need to keep it in the budget and not expect others to do that job, and theirs as well. Our student member said it best. I think that having a coordinator like this is imperative to ensure that every single student is set up for success. Daphne said, and it's not a guarantee that we will have these laws in place, seeing as the current federal administration has cut DEI within various organizations across the nation. So I think that this is something that is under attack right now, and we should not take it lightly. Thank you, Daphne.
I just want to thank everyone who has come and spoke, as well as emailed us. There was an email that came out about a decision we made last meeting, and I just want to say, for myself, I'm still new and still trying to learn, so I really appreciate it when you come out and give us more information, show us your side, as well as the email, so thank you guys.
Daphne?
Yeah, I'm floored at the public response. I appreciate everything that you guys have to say, and seeing the support for this position that is so important, the Supervisor of Equity and Excellence. It restores like a sense of hope and trust in the world to know that we are going in the right direction. I think that a lot of the public comment today has caused me to reflect on my own educational experience and the way that I have been brought up in this county. Reflecting on my academic journey, I have never had a teacher who looked like me. Every single one of my teachers, I think, has been a white person, and that's not to say that they didn't do a good job or to hate on them or anything. I've loved all of my teachers. However, the fact that I have never experienced, being in the classroom with somebody who shares my experiences or who reflects what I look like in the mirror, it's something that I've missed out on, that I do not know. I don't know what it feels like, so I don't know what I missed out on, actually. And it's quite disappointing that there have been so many students that have gone through this county and who will go through this county who will experience the same thing as me. So I thank you all for your public comment. It is very eye-opening, and it's nice to see that people care about the students of this county. People care about students no matter what they look like, where they come from, what they believe. And I think that diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not something that should be feared or something that should be argued against. I think that when people try to find ways to defend themselves for perhaps advocating against DEI positions or DEI programs, it just shows, a kind of learned ignorance and a lack of understanding of what DEI actually is. So I applaud all of you. Please keep coming. I love hearing all of your stories, and thanks.
Are we responding to?
Regular board comment.
Okay, so
You can respond to anything you'd like.
Okay, and so I do appreciate as well everybody coming out to speak. I do want to just make one point on somebody's comment about Mr. Becker and what he's done. And I think Mr. Becker's comments kind of go to the root of where I come from on this whole issue of DEI. You see, there was no Department of Equity and Inclusion when Mr. Becker made all those decisions that he made. He did them because he was a good teacher. He didn't have somebody supervising him and saying, Mr. Becker, you need to do this for these particular students. And so I think that I was glad that was brought up that way, because I've been in a lot of schools lately. Since I've come on, I've been in 13 different schools, trying to hit all of them. It's hard when you work full-time. But I've watched teachers. Some I've observed, some I've just talked to. I've observed principals. And every single one of them loves their job. It's not a job that I necessarily could do, especially with elementary. If you ever watch the teachers in elementary school, the way they love on those kids and just want to teach those kids, it is all of our responsibility to treat each other with respect, no matter the skin of your, the color of your skin. And I am not ignorant to just because I have a differing opinion. It's nice when you talk to people with differing opinions and you can do it in a civil way. With that, I just want to talk or mention a couple things that I've been doing since our last meeting. I attended an education foundational meeting where I was able to meet some of the former board of directors. I have visited several schools, including Lincolnshire Elementary, where I met Principal Haid, who is doing a great job. And if you ever want to meet a guy who loves his job, go talk to Principal Haid. Smile on his face the whole time I was talking to him, and he walked me through his school talking about all the good things going on there. They do free breakfast or meals for all the students, which I would love to see in all of our elementary schools. Maybe start there. Yesterday, I visited the Williamsport campus, which began with reading a book to Miss, and I apologize, ma'am, if I get this wrong, Miss Dinkovich's pre-K class, and then was given a tour of the elementary school by Vice Principal Gray. I also spoke to several staff members there, including Miss Sullivan, Mr. Albin, and Miss Wilcox. I then went to the middle school where Miss Avera gave me a tour of the school. I was able to talk to several staff there as well, including media specialist Miss Swagger, kitchen staff Miss Jackson, math teacher and math teachers Miss Dia Giovanni and Miss Bell. Then met Principal No at Williamsport High School, where I met several staff members, including kitchen staff Miss Stein, metalworking teacher Mr. Young, media specialist Miss Jamison, and Miss Rafter, who works with the students in chorus and theater. And just a note for facilities, Miss Rafter asked about the possibility of upgrading their stage lighting. Very nice person. She said she was the best employee there at Williamsport High. I'll just say each school I have visited has had its own unique thing about it. And at Williamsport High, they have an aviation class taught by Mr. DeVersa. They have some very impressive flight simulators attained through a grant, as well as a drone program where students can receive a license to fly drones commercially. And I can sum up my visits by saying that we have really great staff in this county in our schools. Everyone I spoke to, and even those I observed, showed an obvious love for their job. Finally, I just wanted to make a couple comments because I might not be here April 1st about the recommended budget that's been passed on to us. And so I'll close my comments here with that. To me, and I ran on this as I was running for this board position, our frontline workers are our greatest asset, and I realized that there were some proposed increases, and although there's been a lot of attention paid to our ESP employees over the past couple years, many are still below what their counterparts are making that work in our local county government. As well, many of these ESPs are making $3 to $5 less an hour than if they were to seek work in a local warehouse. That said, I would like for us to consider, in addition to the 2%, another 2% increase for our ESP workers. The cost of this additional pay would be about $700,000. Lastly, our subs are paid at a flat rate. This amount is below minimum wage of $15 per hour based on my calculations. I would like to see us increase that flat rate for just our normal subs by $10 for half a day and $20 for a full day sub. The cost of this increase would amount to $298,000. All other classifications of sub would remain the same. And then finally, we would pay for half of this cost through 5% of the additional funds that we thought may be cut from the budget, as well as more detailed cuts within the proposed budget, simply by cutting about 2% from all non-employee associated expenses, which would cover the other half of that pay increase. I also have my feelings about teachers' pay, but we're waiting to see what transpires with negotiations. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I would just like to basically talk about the budget. I do have some things that I would like to see in the budget. I would like to see summer school for our elementary and middle school students, but I want it to be specific for the students who need the additional help so that we can keep the student-to-teacher ratio to where it's beneficial for the children that go to summer school. I would also like to see the apprenticeship program expanded to include math tutors. I know that the kids love that. My daughter was part of the program for English, and I just think it would be great to add math as well. And I also want to be sure that we have enough placement classrooms or proper placement classrooms in case that has anything to do with budget, which I'm sure it does because of staff. So I just want to be sure we have those.
Oh, thank you very much. I will hold my budget items for our budget hearing in a few weeks. But I'd like to thank all the parents, all the grandparents that came out, the teachers to support the students that were here this evening. It was standing room only, and it was good to see. So I'd like to thank all them folks that are coming out. So that's all I have.
I want to echo that too, to everyone who showed up. It just means so much to us, not only to have your input, but to have your presence with us. It counts. I often say I don't have a political bone in my body, but as a kid, I knew who Dag Hammarskjöld was. He was the UN Secretary General from Sweden. And I took his words to heart even as an elementary school student. He said, "You have not done enough. You've never done enough so long as it's still possible for you to have something to contribute." That stuck with me enough to remember it today. So I ask everyone to ponder this as well. What something do you have to contribute? And then I encourage you to just do it. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.